So one other thing that you've addressed is this idea of a leadership gap. And we have this expectation, and then we have the reality. You've mentioned that leadership is easy to talk about and very hard to do. What is your recommendation then to how we close that leadership gap that we're experiencing in so many organizations?
There's a great sense that leadership is this special skill that a few people have. And I would argue that if most people got together and listed the traits or behaviors of good leaders, our lists would be very similar. I would argue that the biggest difference is in personal self-discipline. So for example, I get up in the morning and I have a pretty good idea of what I would have to do and not do to be a good leader. But that doesn't mean every day I do that. There are days when I'm not a good leader. So I think part of it is just the self-discipline to do it. Now, we tend to get motivated when we're writing vision statements or mission statements or giving general guidance to the group, and we say, we are going to be the best organization possible, and these are soaring ideas, and we're going to work hard. And that's what we, in terms of what we say, and it can be very powerful.
Sure.
But if it is contradicted by the behaviors of leaders, if you say, we're going to show integrity, we're going to show compassion, we're going to show all the things that consistency we want good organizations and leaders to do, and then you don't display those, then in fact there's this say-do gap, the difference between what we say and what we do. And that's where cynicism comes from. In my first battalion in the Army, I remember I had a battalion commander who was a difficult guy, and he would talk about standards and whatnot. And this was the 1970s Army, and there were lots of problems. And we had forbidden one very substandard soldier from reenlisting. And that was the right thing to do. He wasn't good enough to stay in the Army, so he wasn't going to be allowed to reenlist. But at the same time, there was pressure on the battalion commander to enlist a certain percentage, a quota each quarter. And the last day of the quarter, before my company commander came to work, I was a company executive officer, the battalion commander had that soldier brought from our company without talking to our commander, first sergeant, brought to battalion headquarters. They removed the prohibition and they re-enlisted him to make a quota. Now you could understand the battalion commander's desires to meet his numbers. But at the same time, all we talked about in terms of standards and protecting the organizations, he had undercut in a moment. And as a young second lieutenant, I remember watching that and just being shocked. And as I got older, I had a certain sympathy for him, understanding the pressure he felt, but zero tolerance for the willingness to back off what he had said was right and what is right in terms of maintaining standards.